Mark Grayson. Marcus Sebastian Grayson, better known as Invincible, is the son of Onan Grayson, a full-blooded Viltrumite warrior, and Deborah Grayson, a human. As a Viltrumite human hybrid, Mark inherited his father's immense strength, speed, durability, and ability to fly, though his powers didn't emerge until age 17, much later than most Viltrumite descendants. Despite his mixed heritage, Mark's physiology is overwhelmingly Viltrumite. The species' dominant genetics ensure that children born from Viltrumite human unions display full Viltrumite traits both physically and biologically, leaving little to no sign of their human ancestry. Humans are genetically compatible with Viltrumites, which is why hybrids like Mark manifest the race's powers in full, developing the same potential as pure-blooded members of the Empire. Mark's lineage traces back to Emperor Argal, the founder of the Viltrum Empire, giving him an exceptionally pure bloodline. This heritage not only grants him the strength and endurance of a high-tier Viltrumite, but also makes him one of the few capable of surviving the Scourge virus, a disease that wiped out nearly all of his species. His power level is considered on par with some of the most elite warriors in Viltrumite history. In terms of raw ability, Mark has demonstrated strength on a massive scale, throwing a baseball around the planet, surviving nuclear-level explosions, and moving at speeds fast enough to cross continents in seconds. His strength also scales with emotion, meaning rage or grief can push his limits far beyond normal Viltrumite thresholds. Mark began his journey as a regular high school student, eager to live up to his father's example. But his world collapsed when he learned that Nolan's mission on Earth was not one of protection, but of conquest. That revelation reshaped his purpose. Rejecting the Empire his father served, Mark became Earth's defender, dedicating himself to protecting humanity from Viltrumites and every other threat that followed. Over time, he evolved from a naive and optimistic teenager into a hardened, thoughtful leader. He faced countless losses, from the trauma of fighting conquest to mentoring his younger brother Oliver during his darker years. His moral restraint, his reluctance to kill, even when justified, often put him at odds with the pragmatic brutality of his kind, but it became the foundation of his humanity. Though often outmatched, he learned to adapt, enduring punishment that would kill lesser beings. By the end of his story, after defeating Thragg and losing his father, Mark inherited leadership of the Viltrum Empire. Under his rule, the Empire began its transformation, from a civilization built on domination to one seeking peace and coexistence across the galaxy. Mark Grayson's story is that of legacy, loss, and conviction. Born from two worlds and shaped by both, he stands as the bridge between what the Viltrumites were and what they have the potential to become. Oliver Grayson. Oliver Grayson, known as Kid Omni-Man or Young Omni-Man, is the son of Nolan Grayson and Andressa, a Thraxan alien, making him the half-brother of Mark Grayson. His hybrid heritage, half Viltrumite and half Thraxan, grants him immense power, but also a set of unique characteristics that distinguish him from other Viltrumites. Oliver's Viltrumite genes dominate his physiology, giving him near-complete access to their abilities. However, his Thraxan side introduces several differences. His skin carries a purple hue, a visible marker of his mixed lineage, and his genetic makeup results in both advantages and drawbacks. The Thraxan influence gives him accelerated cognitive development and an extraordinary capacity for learning. He possesses near-perfect memory, an analytical mind, and the ability to master complex subjects and skills almost instantly. Yet, the same genetic incompatibility between his parents also limits him. While his Viltrumite traits make him powerful, he does not quite reach the level of pure-blooded Viltrumites like his father or brother. His lifespan and durability are shorter by Viltrumite standards, and his growth pattern differs greatly. He aged at a rapid rate during his early years, reaching the appearance of a child within months. Once his Viltrumite genes stabilized, his aging slowed to match that of a typical Viltrumite, allowing him to mature physically and mentally at a steadier pace. Oliver's personality contrasts sharply with Mark's. He is more impulsive, outspoken, and morally rigid in some ways, but far more lenient in others. Where Mark avoids killing, Oliver sees it as a necessary tool to achieve peace, often taking actions that his brother considers too extreme. This ideological divide causes tension between them, especially as Oliver grows into his own as a hero. Over time, Oliver left Earth with Alan the Alien, traveling to Taliscria, the Coalition's central planet. There, he met Hama, a lobster-like alien with whom he fell in love. After a 5-year time skip, the The two married and had twin children, who appear later in the series during key moments. Oliver's story is one of constant evolution. He begins as a child desperate to understand his place in a universe divided by strength and ideology, and becomes a powerful, if controversial figure shaped by both his human upbringing and Viltrumite heritage. Despite his flaws, his intelligence, determination, and unyielding will make him a reflection of both sides of his bloodline. Ursil. Ursil is a Viltrumite Thraxan hybrid whose Viltrumite genetics are so dominant that she is nearly indistinguishable from a pure Viltrumite in both power and appearance. She is the twin sister of Onan and the daughter of Grand Regent Thragg, born as part of his breeding program to produce superior hybrid soldiers through the mating of Viltrumites with Thraxan females. From birth, Ursil displayed the physical might of her Viltrumite lineage, combined with the advanced cognitive abilities of her Thraxan heritage, making her one of the most formidable and intelligent hybrids ever created. Ursil's power eventually came to rival that of elite Viltrumites such as General Thragg and Anissa. Raised under Thragg's oppressive rule, she initially served his campaign of domination, but began questioning his vision after witnessing the unnecessary cruelty of her siblings. Her defiance became clear when she intervened to prevent one of them from annihilating a planet's population, showing that her loyalty was to the Viltrumite people, not to violence. The death of her twin brother Onan profoundly changed her. It pushed her to reject her father's tyranny and pledge allegiance to the new Viltrum Empire led by Mark Grayson. Under his command, Ursil became an integral part of the coalition of planets. She remains the most powerful Thraxan hybrid ever created. Onan. Onan is a Viltrumite Thraxan hybrid and one of the many offspring created through Grand Regent Thagg's breeding program with the females of Thraxa. Among all of Thagg's children, Onan stood out as his most loyal and most brutal enforcer. Raised under Thagg's harsh rule, Onan knew nothing of compassion or affection. His father valued only strength, and that relentless conditioning turned Onan into a sadistic soldier who found pleasure in violence and domination. He became the embodiment of Viltrumite aggression, a weapon molded entirely by his father's expectations. He and his twin sister Ursil, the first Viltrumite twins in generations, were sent on a mission to assassinate Mark Grayson's family. The task exposed their opposing natures. Onan's fury and bloodlust drove him to attack without restraint, but his brutality became his downfall. In the ensuing battle, Mark Grayson killed him, a decisive moment that marked a shift in Mark's character as he abandoned restraint to protect his family. Tara Grayson. Tara Grayson is a human Viltrumite hybrid, the daughter of Mark Grayson and Samantha Eve Wilkins. She was born after Eve underwent emergency surgery following the amputation of her leg, with Mark by her side, holding their newborn daughter and worrying about what her future might hold. Although her mother is human, Tara's Viltrumite heritage dominates. Her biology is closer to that of a pure Viltrumite, with her human genetics largely overridden at conception. Despite being only 1/4 Viltrumite by blood, she manifested her powers remarkably early, at just 6 years old, which is rare for any hybrid. Her physiology functions almost entirely like that of a Viltrumite, though it's believed she may one day develop her mother's transmutation abilities if her genes adapt. Tara spent her childhood traveling across the universe with her parents, first alongside the coalition of planets, and later among the nomadic Viltrumite Empire. These experiences shaped her understanding of compassion and responsibility, as she witnessed civilizations trying to recover from the Empire's past conquests. As she grew older, Tara created her own heroic identity. She wore a redesigned Invincible suit that fused her parents' iconic looks and became the third person to carry the Invincible name. Known across the galaxy for her strength, empathy, and resolve, Tara Grayson stands as one of the most respected and dependable figures of her generation. Marcus Murphy, also known as Marky, is the son of Mark Grayson and the Viltrumite warrior Anissa, conceived after Anissa forcibly took advantage of Mark following his return from a dimension ruled by Mohawk Mark. As a result of his parentage, Marky is 3/4 Viltrumite and 1/4 human, inheriting the full spectrum of Viltrumite abilities. Marky was raised on Earth by his adoptive father, Scott Murphy, alongside his half-sister, Molly Murphy. For much of his childhood, he lived unaware of his true origins, believing himself to be Scott's biological son. When the truth finally surfaced about his conception, his real father, and Anissa's death, it shattered him. The revelation left him overwhelmed by guilt and confusion, consumed by self-hatred and the belief that he was never meant to exist. His powers surface violently during this emotional turmoil. In a fit of grief after learning of his mother's death, Marky's strength erupted uncontrollably. When Scott tried to calm him, Marky lost control, tearing through the walls of his room and fleeing into the city, unleashing destruction as his emotions spiraled. It was then that Mark Grayson and Adam Eve intervened, with Mark confronting him directly. The truth was finally spoken. Mark was his father. Afterward, Mark took responsibility for his son, deciding to face him not as a hero, but as a father. He told Marky everything: the truth of his origin, the history of their family, and what it meant to carry the Grayson name. Rather than take him away, Mark allowed Marky and his family to remain on Earth, wanting him to experience the kind of normal life he once had. Eventually, Marky accepted his lineage, taking up the mantle of Kid Invincible. His suit mirrored his father's, but carried subtle, modern touches that made it his own. Still, the peace did not last. As Marky grew older, the pain he had buried resurfaced. He came to see himself as a living reminder of violence, a mistake forced into existence. His admiration for his father curdled into resentment. Watching Mark raise Tara, the daughter he chose, only deepened his bitterness, leaving him convinced he had been unwanted from the start. Years later, now an adult hardened by that pain, Marky set out across the stars to find his father. When he finally did, fueled by rage and grief, Marky attacked, determined to kill the man he believed had never wanted him. As it went on, the fury gave way to exhaustion and truth. In tears, Marky broke down, confessing that he had always believed he was doomed to become something terrible, that his very birth was a curse. Mark refused to let that belief define him. In that moment, he forgave his son, telling him that none of what happened was his fault, and that he was never a mistake. For the first time, Marky accepted it. Their reconciliation closed a painful chapter in both of their lives, turning the cycle of violence that created him into one of understanding and redemption. Other Viltrumite hybrids. Lucan has 3 children. His son Kalman is one of the few hybrids who unlocked his powers early. He's also rebellious, and was the only one who fought back when Rex tried to keep them captive for his plans. Kalman has 2 younger siblings, his sister Alicia and another unnamed one. Thragg has several unnamed Viltrumite Thraxan hybrids. Tula also has 2 unnamed children. Anissa has a daughter named Molly with Scott Murphy. Craig has multiple unnamed Viltrumite human hybrid children. And finally, Oliver has twins, making them the second set of Viltrumite hybrid twins after Thragg's children Onan and Ursil. Oliver's twins are likely the weakest hybrid children, since their father is a Viltrumite Thraxan hybrid and their mother is a lobster alien. We don't know how strong their Viltrumite side will be because their powers were never confirmed. By the end of the series, they were still very young.